Today, we'll go ahead and get started in our work session. So we are here for a work session between the TAC and PC on the new tip. Brad, thank you.
It's his fault.
We have limited time, so we need to get started. So our meeting today is really to go over the draft tip. See if you all have any questions, comments, concerns, and just give you more information about where we're at right now with everything. So I sent out the draft tip to you all. I didn't include a lot of explanation for it. I really wanted to see what kind of responses I would get back from the committee members to see where we had some areas of improvement for the tip process itself. So thank you for those who submitted questions to me. That really helped a lot. What I'm going to do is kind of go over the tip itself, kind of how staff created the version that you were sent, how projects were selected, where we're at, and then get into the feedback from you all. Couple things to keep in mind. This is a work session. There's no actions that are actually taken today. This is just an opportunity for you to engage with staff, give feedback, and to help guide the process as we move forward. We are recording it, but we're not taking minutes or notes. We'll take notes if there's like, make this change or something like that, but we're not having official notes that we're going to send out to you all. And please be respectful of each other as we're all here to get this done. So, the tip, our funding program, as we are referring to it now. It is our 4-year program of what projects we're going to fund based on our guidance in the MTP and where the policy committee thinks funding should go. So how did we start this version of the tip? Well, the first thing staff did is look at the current 23 through 26 funding program and said, what projects do we have underway that are going to have needs in the 27 through 30 time period? Let me show you what that looks like. You look at a complete streets table, you'll see that there are a lot of projects in here. And you may be like, why did you select all these projects, Aaron? Well, anything that is listed as a grandfathered project that has that yes next to it means it's a project that is currently underway. So it has funding and will need some funding in the 27 through 30 funding program. So I didn't select the project. Those are ones we're just carrying forward because they're still underway. Now, the projects in green, I scroll down. It may not have come through for everybody, but the projects in green are brand new projects that staff's recommending to be added as design starts as part of this funding program. There were not a whole lot of new projects. I'll just say that up front. We have a lot of funding needs and not a lot of funding to address everything. So there were some projects that staff had to recommend moving out into the next funding program. Those are the projects that have the red boxes or the red highlights with them. So you see the 2 reds in there. Say for this one shows 2020 red. That's where it was, or sorry, 2028. Screen's impossible to see. 2028, and we moved it out to beyond 2030 because there wasn't enough funding to cover that project. That's part of what we need to hear from you today as committee members. Are you okay with those trade-offs? Are you okay with the projects that we show in here and the projects that we're recommending for funding in the next tip cycle? Because remember, we are fiscally constrained with the tip. We can't afford everything, so we have to be mindful of it. And that's part of what staff does. So all of the projects that are grandfathered are underway. So we just kind of put them in there. The decisions we made as staff for which ones are kind of moving forward and which ones are being delayed, all of it had to do with what is the schedule for the project right now? So how far along is it? Where is it going to be at in the 27 through 30 time period? And do we have enough funding to pay for it? So some projects were like, okay, 3rd Avenue, for example, we had to rescope that project. Kind of had to just slow it down a little, kind of start some of it over. So it's not going to be as far along as other projects such as Academy Vanguard or Mountain Air Drive. So staff's recommendation is the projects that are going to be ready for construction in the 27 through 30 time period, we put them in here and fund them, get them done. New projects. How did new projects get started or selected? So what we tried this go round with this version of the funding program is we did not do a call for nominations like we've done in the past. We've talked about this at the committee meetings before, so this shouldn't be new info for you all, but I'm just going to reiterate it anyways. Instead, what we decided to do is just pull projects directly from the MTP, the 2050 MTP, because those were scored, ranked, and prioritized. So what staff did is I went into the MTP, pulled the top 14 complete streets projects that don't have any funding currently on them, and the top 15 active transportation projects that don't have funding currently on them. And that's that list that I sent you that Melinda has right there that shows all the different projects. And basically what I did is I just went from the top down, said, what is reasonable to fund? And here's some parameters that I used for it. Is it going to be an easier project than some of the ones we have in here right now? Because we have a lot of complicated projects that are very expensive and taking a very long time to get done. So are there some that we can get started that can be done a little bit quicker so we can just get something out for the community and do it right? And is it cheaper? I looked for things that was 35-ish million or less. We have some projects in there for 60 million, 55 million. Those projects are challenging for us to be able to afford. Fireweed Lane is a $50 million plus project, and in order to fund it, we're having to AC money from one year to the next. Basically borrow from one year to use in another year. And it's a struggle for us to balance the program. So that's where staff kind of came from. So if you're wondering, well, these are weird, these, 15th, why did we select 15th? I'll get to that in a few minutes as we go through. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking at these projects, is really just thinking about easier projects and cheaper projects to get them done. That's good. Graham, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. You mentioned AC. Is there a way to tell which projects are having the advanced construct?
Yes. So thank you for asking that. Let me scroll up. So Fireweed Lane is the project that we're having to do advanced construct. So we have noted it in the fund codes. Let me highlight it right here. I apologize, it's hard to see, but this screen is gross. So anything that says AC next to it, so state match or AMATS, STBG, AC, or ACC, ACC is the conversion. So basically the AC is you borrowed the money and then you convert it later to pay for it. Because you upfront money with non-federal money, and then later when you convert it, you get the federal funding for it. The reason we show it in here is because we need to recognize that we need $44 million in obligation authority that year. It's our way as staff to try and show this information to everybody of our need for there. So it doesn't go missed and be like, well, wait a minute, you needed $22 million extra in obligation authority. We didn't see that in the program. It's to try and make it easier for DOT headquarters as well to be able to see this. So it's our first attempt at trying this. So we'll see how it goes.
Did you send this document out, Aaron?
Yes, I did. I sent it in an email to everybody.
Wait.
I apologize. This looks like it got cut. It might have gotten cut off a little bit here, but that's that. And then you'll see a yellow one here, a yellow colored one that is not on the version we've received. The reason is I've already gotten a request for additional funding for a project, and it is the Potter Drive rehabilitation. It needed some additional funding. That funding is not in the 23 through 26 tip, so we need to show it in the 27 through 30 tip. So that's a couple extra $1 million that we're going to have to find in some location to pay for that. So that's the kind of stuff that I have to do on my end. When requests like those come in, we try and find how can we accommodate it and bring that forward as a recommendation to you all. And I want to reiterate, this is just staff's recommendation. You as the committee members can change whatever you want in here. Just realize there are ramifications to that. So for example, if you want a project moved out and another one moved in, you need to make sure that we're fiscally constrained. So the amounts need to be the same in what you move out to what you move in. One of the things I want to reiterate, I only really updated the first 6 tables. So that's complete streets, active transportation, plans and studies, congestion mitigation, and pavement replacement. Because I'm still waiting for data from DOT for the rest of the tables or from the railroad, because it takes a little bit of time for them to get all their information together and send it to us. So I recognize that this work session is pretty limited in what we're talking about here, what I was going to talk to you all about. We're welcome to have another work session if you wish, once we get that updated information on HSIP and NHS. So you can review it and discuss it and be like, is this what we're okay with including in the tip? Or not? So just realize that most of what I'm talking about today is just those first 6 tables for now. Okay. New projects I'll go into a little bit. So when we looked at the table for new projects from the MTP, kind of went down the list, and these were the ones that, to me, made the most sense to fit the criteria of a little less expensive, maybe a little less impactful, easier to get done. 15th Avenue was one of them on the list. And while it included all of 15th Avenue, it's not really reasonable for us to do the entirety of 15th Avenue in one go. So staff looked at maybe what is the easier section to rehabilitate. Originally looking at L Street to C Street. However, today, with Emily and Donovan from traffic and the rest of AMATS staff, we went out and biked or drove these new project locations to see, is there something else that we should include in there or recommend or add? And when we did 15th Avenue, we actually figured it would be better for us to extend the termini a little instead of ending at C Street, end it at Cordova, where there is north-south bike lanes already. Because the idea for 15th Avenue is to rehab 15th, remove the center turn lane, add bike lanes in. So the idea here is not to widen the facility, to use the existing right-of-way that we have. A lot of the pavement or the pathway pavement out there seems to be in pretty reasonable condition. So there may be some opportunity to help cut down how impactful the project is. But it also is looking at things like reducing speeds. You know, anybody who's familiar with that area, people speed pretty rapidly to get onto that on-ramp onto Minnesota. Well, I think it's still L Street at that point, but that on-ramp, it's pretty noticeable when people are getting on. So there may be an opportunity to help slow some of the speeds down with maybe some raised crosswalks. You know, we're also looking at street lighting, and then see if there's any intersection improvements at E Street. The reason we added that E Street one is because in the project description in the MTP, it talks about putting in like a roundabout at E Street. I'll be honest, that's probably going to be a big challenge with the right-of-way constraints in that area, and it may not be needed. So we recommend to shift it to the intersection improvements to give it a little bit more flexibility in what to do with that intersection. So, you know, I will tell you, 15th Avenue in this location is not on our high crash network that we just had approved by the policy committee. And that is something to recognize. But I think it's important for us to remember that we can do projects adjacent to our high crash network that can help the high crash network itself. And anybody who uses this area, you just kind of dump out from the pathway and you're on this road and you're like, what do I do? It's pretty high speed area that people drive through. So the idea here is to improve this connection to allow it to make it easier for people to get over from here to the Cordova area, to get onto the A Street pathway, things like that. So, you know, a portion of this does go in front of the school there. So there's some opportunity to figure out what we want to do in front of the school.
We include a way to get off of A Street on the 15th.
It already exists. Kind of have to go over the Cordova hill.
Yeah, it'd be off of Cordova. I don't think we would have something from A Street onto 15th. I think that would be
When we looked at it, we saw that.
oh, bikes for bikes. That's, I think,
Might be able to.
yeah. So we were looking at it already. There's already a pathway, but there's the stairs on the southern side that you have to go up. So I don't know what to do about those. And then there's a pathway on the north side, and we were talking about maybe adding a curb cut in that people can actually access that pathway a little bit easier instead of having to go around to the driveways that are on either end of it. I don't really know what to do with the stairs. Because stair replacement is a challenge for us with federal funds. We can't really do it.
Yep.
So there may need to be some discussion of what to do with them. Did you have your hand, Taylor?
You said it.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't need to steal your
Don't
thunder.
apologize. At least I did.
Challenge.
So the idea here is 15th Avenue appears to be a pretty reasonable project to move forward on. Pretty easy project to do if we don't do a lot of changes to the curve or to the sidewalks that are out there. a lot of impact to that, and really focus on paint pavement where possible. There's going to probably have to be some changes to things if we do the raised crosswalks. Maybe some of the signals will have to change because right now there's dedicated left turn lanes for some reason on Cordova and other streets, which, you know, we might be able to look at. What is the ADT? Do we still need those dedicated left turn lanes onto those slower roads? So I think it's a good opportunity to say, what can we do here?
Someone who rides there daily. Sucked. Because the timing, you're there for 5 minutes waiting for the stupid light.
Which intersection?
Cordova and 15th.
Yeah,
The cross street, you just sit there for denied, just go up.
I think it's an opportunity to make some improvements in this area. So we may actually want to, I'm just thinking about it, we may want to adjust this. Instead of saying intersection improvements at E Street, we just say intersection improvements. So then all the intersections can be taken care of. So I just noticed that, I apologize. We also removed this one here where it says remove telephone poles. We were out there today and a lot of the telephone poles, from what we could tell, and Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, we're kind of already on the edge of the right of way. And if we're trying to be reasonable about our approach and our impact and cost, that may be something that we don't need to do, especially if we're not touching the existing sidewalks, pathways, and just leaving them as they are. That may be something we're actually recommending removing that just because that drives up cost and time for a project. Okay, any questions on 15th? Anger, are you guys upset? I expected tomato throwing and things like that, so I came prepared. Okay, next one is Denali Street. So this is looking at doing a complete street on Denali for the entire length from Tudor to Fireweed. I'll be honest, this is a massive north-south connection in this area. It appears that it does not have as much traffic as it is built for. It is a 4-lane in some sections, 5-lane in others. And so there may be an opportunity for us to take a look at converting some of those lanes to on-street bike facilities. You know, maybe making it to where the sidewalks don't dip every time they come through a driveway. Maybe we don't need a center turn lane through all of it. Maybe there are some areas where we might want to do a center turn lane, maybe some areas we don't. I think it's a grand opportunity to take a look at what are some options through here. We recognize that, you know, maintenance is an issue, so that would have to be part of the discussion if we wanted to have it be like a 2-lane facility. But I think Denali is a prime candidate to start looking at. Because I think there's kind of uniform consensus that something should be done on Denali. I was asked, are there any pilot projects or any demonstration projects in the tip? No. However, projects that get started like Denali could include a pilot. So an opportunity we were talking about today on our bike ride is, why don't we just go out there and for, I don't know if all of it, but at least a portion of it, maybe from Tudor to 36 or something, we just take one of the lanes and convert it into a bike lane using paint. And just test it out. Test it out during the winter, test it out during the summer, see how it goes. So that can be something we can talk about as a possibility. I do want to emphasize, pilot projects take a lot of work. They take a lot of public involvement and engagement, as I'm sure Brad can tell you from the protected bike lane on 6th Avenue. So, you know, I just want to be clear, we're having kind of project delays for most of our projects now. So I'm hoping if we do pilot work, we won't have continued delays on our projects. I just wanted to get that out there. Yeah, I don't know. You know, we tried to include as much as we could in Denali, just give as much flexibility as possible here. Lane reduction, intersection work, active transportation facilities, drainage work where needed, lighting improvements where needed. And we're looking at reclassifying Denali from a minor arterial to major collector. And that functional classification change would be considered as part of the design up front. And the reason we put that in there is because that's what the policy committee approved as comments on the state's functional classification. And I don't think the change was made just because of how the road functions today. So we just need to recognize that there is a desire to change the functional classification. Graham, your hand is up.
Yeah, I'll say thanks for including this one, Aaron. I'd say this is actually a road project the mayor has quite a strong feeling about, and she'd like us to both move quickly and to prioritize non-motorized here. So I think there might be a world in which we actually get more prescriptive about the goals of this project and really focus on the connecting the Campbell and Chester Creek trails north-south with Denali Road. And maybe being a little more prescriptive about the design process starting pretty soon and including some form of pilot project. And I think alternatively, if that's not possible with the federal money, then we should talk as staff about what it might look like if we want to use local money or bond money instead.
That's great. That's good feedback. Thank you. I think I'll just point out both of these project starts are slated for the 2030 timeframe starting. So if there's a desire to move them sooner, I think that information would be very helpful from the committees to be like, we want this one started right away. Because then that gives staff the understanding, okay, we need to find some money to get this started. So it sounds like Graham at least said, maybe Denali needs to be moved up a little bit sooner. So now we'll go to Aaron first and then Brad.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. I noticed that there was no funding programmed until 2030. And that's certainly something that I would like to see moved up in terms of timeline. I think particularly thinking about that north-south connectivity, it would be really fantastic if this also contemplated pedestrian facilities through the Tudor intersection. Eagle Street is like just over, I think it's owned right of way, actually, on where Denali dead ends into Tudor. And then creating sort of that neighborhood greenway option that would get connectivity from Campbell all the way to Chester. I don't know if it's possible for this project to include that intersection and the pedestrian facilities there, but I think if we are thinking about a sort of a contiguous bike lane, that would be really helpful.
It is possible for this project to include Tudor. There'd have to be a lot of coordination, of course, on that. We do have it in the description to include intersection work. So
I wasn't sure which.
Yeah, all of them. That's my approach to be like, when we say intersection, we mean all of them need to be. Yeah.
Great, okay.
Because it's a pain to go through and list every single one, and we want the flexibility in there to be like, let's look at them. Oh, we found out this one we don't need to do. Thankfully, we didn't call it out directly. Now we have to go ahead the scope. So we're just trying to call it in there, and I think DOT's on board with that as a general. Maybe Luke can say anything on that.
Yeah, no, I think you want flexibility in any of the scopes there so that we have the ability to look at all the intersections within the project corridor.
Thank you.
Brad.
Yeah, so for sure we need to figure out how the facility was crossing Tudor. It's already a signal, so it's not like it's gonna add a whole lot of delay or issues to the motorized traffic, but it should be figured out without a doubt. Thinking about kind of what we've learned from the neighborhood greenways, there's not a whole lot of north-south options for like bike facilities for almost all abilities, kind of like what we're going for with neighborhood greenways. So Denali Street actually is a perfect connection on the north to Eagle, which connects to Chester Creek Trail and then into that neighborhood. There's different challenges of like, how would we cross International Airport if we did have a neighborhood greenway down from Eagle or Fairbanks and getting south, but we can come to that bridge when we get there. But on the timing wise for Denali, it would be fantastic to be able to have it start as soon as possible if we did want a pilot, so that it could get, because the way a pilot would work in my mind is you get kind of preliminary design concepts and then you have a pilot that you throw out there for at least a summer. I would envision a summer, winter. So that's like a full, you'd want like a year of design, at least a year of pilot, at least. And then, so it would almost be kind of like a slow roll with some of the funding before you then spend the bulk that would have to get spent for like a major redesign. So to the degree that we could move funding and get started, as early as next year, even if that was at all a possibility with some of the design, would be amazing. But I know that there's other things that need funding and timing wise. So
maybe that's a discussion as part of amendment number 4. So we'll get there at some point, but I think for now, for this tip, it sounds like, unless anybody has any major, heck no, sounds like staff should be looking for earlier funding for Denali Street kind of in this version, 27 for funding. And then if there's an opportunity to do 26 to get things started even earlier, maybe that's an option. I can't guarantee that, but okay. Linda?
I'm just excited to see that it was identified and included as far as this draft. PM&E had started a project with that segment and we got to a draft DSR level. But, you know, just off the top of my head, it was something in the order of $30 million. It's just too costly for PM&E to deliver this project using only bonds. I will note that we do have $1 million sitting there allocated for this project that was added by a zoning member, I think, Boland, like 2 years ago or so. But
Okay.
so we do have match money that could
Okay.
be available. Just pointing that out. Yeah.
I wonder if some of that could be used to help with starting a pilot project too, before the federal, something to think about. If there's a desire to get something started right away, then you don't have to wait for AMATS's process and you can get maybe a pilot project started quickly and then let it go for a year, summer and winter, and have that ready for when the project gets going.
How far are you?
We got to a draft DSR level.
Okay.
And what I will share is it was a large footprint. We did not look at maybe just kind of more minimizing using what we have and trying to stay in compliance right away. So it'd be a much different project, much more efficient project if we took another look at it.
What's your whole estimate for pre-construction costs? You could develop that project using those other funds as long as you follow the federal process. We could federalize it later on. Pretty common.
Yeah, that is an option that we're looking at. So is seeing if there's local funds that can be used to do some of the initial design work to get a project started and then bring the federal funds later. You know, how a lot of other communities do it is local funds or non-federal funds, local state, get up to, I think, the construction phase. And basically everything there is done locally, state, non-federal. And then the construction utilities is put into the STIP or TIPS. So that's why the feds are always like, why does it take so long for your projects? Why does it take so long for your processes? Because a lot of other communities do it a little bit quicker because they use non-federal to get up to a certain point. So that is a good point, Sean, and maybe something for the muni to think about.
I can ask Brad, I think related to all these things, I'm trying to visualize what an intersection treatment looks like for, say, a greenway or a bike lane crossing.
For like a Denali where it's already got a signal,
Yeah, Denali, where you come up to Tudor, what would you do different?
you probably have a bike signal. You might have a separate phase that serves that. It could be maybe some of the color of the pavement might be something you could consider, just instead of having your typical curb ramps that you have now, you have something that is more accommodating like a trail. We don't know exactly, because we don't necessarily have something other than what you would serve a multi-use trail. I think like an international to cross international with Neighborhood Greenway. It might be something like that's for Refuge Island. It might be looking at, can you lower a speed limit and have some calming treatment so that it is a little bit lower speed. So yeah, like tailor up the flashing beacons or some other pedestrian signal, would it need to be something to that degree? I'm not positive exactly.
I think one of the biggest things that would help with Denali and Tudor, what we noticed is make the button do something. So when you're coming up to it and you push it, it reduces the time for drivers and makes it quicker for active transportation users so they don't have to sit there for the full cycle. Because it is a long light for anybody who's standing there waiting. And it is not a pleasant road to stand next to. So there might be some opportunities to look at some of those kind of changes as well. So Taylor.
It's also, there's only crossing on the one side of the road, so I think you would want to extend that to both sides. And then the connection into the neighborhood and signage, I think it's more like, what are the guides following the intersection? Than the intersection itself, which could easily, I think, be accommodated if people can behave.
Yeah, if I
Glass is
could,
half full, I like it.
yeah, if I could jump, that was actually something I was gonna say, is that there's only one crossing.
Okay,
It's, and I think it's on the, yeah, on the west side of Denali. So like in my perfect world, right, it's like green concrete or something, you know, that is like a visual signal that this is bike lane, the bike lane is crossing traffic, you know. And it's just very like visually obvious that the intersection is intended to be a throughway, not a dead end the opposite side of the street. So
I want to point out, Sean Baskey mentioned he would encourage mention of Eagle Street and Denali if that is the idea of vision. So maybe what staff can do is take a look at how we can incorporate that in there and bring a recommendation forward for you all when you see this next.
I'm just gonna think out loud for a second. I think that's probably would have value as part of a pilot, is to use some green paint for the bike lanes just to see how that holds up to a plow. Or I don't know, or maybe it's snowstorms. I don't know.
I mean, that, I think that's kind of the idea behind having an on-street facility that's not like a physical barrier protected instead of, and having paint as a buffer, it makes it easier for it to be plowed during the winter time.
I just want to flag for Denali Street as well, the archive site to be developed and incorporating this, anticipating more housing in the area. I think it's a great project for that.
Okay. Graham, you have your hand up?
Well, hopefully to close the loop on this, let's, I think Brad is gonna set up a meeting for the Muni to talk about Denali Street. So if there's folks from DOT that want to be there as well, it sounds like Aaron, you should definitely be there. But I think that's the next step for us, is to think about how we're going to bring Muni resources to Denali to potentially deliver it faster.
Okay.
So when Sean asked his comment about Eagle Street being connected, is that the north end or the south end or both? Because I know that's where the neighborhood greenway on the north end is as well, so.
I think that's what we would need to look at as staff, is kind of figure out how we want to incorporate that in and what makes the most sense without skyrocketing the price and impacts of the project. So we'll take a look at that. I have an awesome resource available to me with Emily that can help. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Really quick, I noticed it says complete street. Is that on purpose or because some of them say rehabilitation?
Yeah, we do
Sure.
that.
I thought we were dropping that on the titles.
Complete streets.
The table's called.
Yeah, the whole table is called it. So that's what it's called in the MTP. So we just carried it forward. If you guys want us to change it, we do have this kind of, the Muni calls rehab something and DOT calls it something else. So it does become a little bit of a confusion for everybody as to which version of rehab or reconstruction are you talking about, Munis or DOTs. So if you guys need us to change it to be more clear to say rehab or reconstruction, let us know and we can do that. My hope is with a complete street acronym, it gets us to the point that we know that it's going to be probably a rehab.
That is the goal.
I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Okay.
A DOT version of a rehab, sorry.
like to know the difference.
I can-
You don't have to, it
No.
doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a right now as question. That could
Let me-
be a
let me
later
try
on
real quick.
conversation.
Reconstruction, the DOT reconstruction requires you to look at the geometry of the roadway and like the curves and everything like that. So Luke, take it over.
Yeah, so reconstruction would be meeting all standards. So imagine you're building a new road. You would be building the facility 100% to design standards. For a rehab, we can look at the project in terms of what makes sense for the corridor. So we do a 3R analysis or kind of take a look at it and say, okay, well, you know, design standards are this width for a sidewalk or a lane or something like that, but we don't want to take a whole row of houses or a whole row of businesses. So we can relax the standards, or there's some tolerances there. Well, we're not meeting the full requirement there, But we're doing the right context for the area.
Great.
Okay, any other questions about this? Let me ask, are there questions about the projects in red on this table that anyone would like to discuss? The projects that are being recommended for being moved into the next tip?
Yes.
Oh, zoom in a little more. Yeah, I'm sorry, the screen is not the best. I'll zoom in some.
Are you starting from the top?
Yep, let me go from the
Yeah, I
top.
was gonna say, because there's some red and.
So the first one is Rabbit Creek Road rehabilitation. The big one with this is the cost. It is $28 million. And we just don't have the funding available in that year, in any of the years for this, unless other things move out as well. And just so you know, when we say it's moving out, doesn't mean the project is stopping.
Right.
Work still happens on the project. Graham, go ahead.
I don't see any red for Spinard Road. And it looks like Spinard still says 2027 UC. I wonder if that's still accurate.
That is accurate according to DOT. So if that needs to be updated, then that is something we can do between now and the next time you see the document.
Get up, but I don't bet that gets.
I'd love to see it sooner than later. So. Do it. Let's
Because we're-
keep it there.
We're paused right now, right?
It's only really a soft pause. I mean, we're
It's-
ready to get going at it. Point.
Yeah, I think at this point it's right away, which is kind of an unknown, right? So we've got a long lead time. I don't think there's any harm in leaving it in 27 for right now. We can check and verify and see how things are going with that, and we might need to update as we get a little bit closer, but I'll see if I can track down anything. But I think we're okay for right now.
We are buying that right away, right? Right, we've been waiting for something from the city to start.
We had some additional communication with the public, and we just need to convene back to the administration and check in and see if we have a green light to keep moving and get started on the right way.
Yeah, I was actually going to say maybe we should have a Spinard Road meeting later this month or next week or even the week after.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we got the notes back from that meeting, and I think we should brainstorm together how we can deliver that as quickly as possible, which is sort of my takeaway from the community meeting.
Sounds good, Graham. We're ready. PMD's ready to have that. We'll set something up.
Great, thanks, Melinda.
Yeah, it does look like we're anticipating that October of 27, which would be the beginning of this year.
So it'll be 28. So, okay, we'll have to look at adjusting that. Take a note on it. Hardwood, 27 to 28. I just do what I can with the information I'm given. So
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks, Aaron. Hey, Aaron, I would say come to the meeting with us on Spinard, and we'll see if we need to adjust it. I think we should just have that meeting and figure out what the timeline looks like realistically together with DOT.
We'll hold off until we get maybe further confirmation from DOT and the Muni on what they expect the timeline to be for that one for now. We have a little bit of time, so it's not something we have to change tomorrow. Okay. Any questions on Rabbit Creek? Okay. Sorry, Will. Next is Chugach Way rehabilitation. Sorry, everybody, I hate seeing this one. But, you know, we have not had a lot of progress on this project. I believe the project manager has been out for a while. We switched over to a new project manager to kind of get this thing moving, but at this point, we are not going to be ready for this project. And it was one of the ones that we recommended to make the cut just because of funding limitations. We didn't have enough funding for it as well.
Was there already some pre-construction money available? Because I know they're in the midst of negotiating consultants, right?
We do have funding in place for this project for the
Okay.
initial design phase. And, I don't know if we got NTP with the consultant, but we've been through a good amount of the professional service
That's
effort on this one. So it's moving. It's moving.
And one of the things to think about these projects that are moving out, they're still going to be worked on, as I said. They can be used to help fill in gaps that appear later. If we have projects that slips, which happens, we can look at other projects that are underway. So Chugach Way may be a perfect project for us to keep going, since it's hopefully going to be a little bit simpler, less impactful, and we can slip it in if there is a slip that happens at a later date. Remember, we make changes to this tip on a regular basis. So just keep that in mind. Okay, next one, Third Avenue reconstruction. Again, this one, we did move out the construction for it from 28 to beyond 30. A lot of this had to do with rescoping of the project, kind of restarting everything. It's going to take a little bit longer. There is some additional money that's needed in 27, so you can see that project is still moving forward. And I think it's pretty reasonable to assume it's going to take us a little bit longer to get through this project with that scope change. Any questions? And realize we're going to have another tip in 4 years, and we're going to need projects to fill that tip up. So that's what some of these projects are going to help with. So, we have a lot of needs. Next, should just be, yeah. Okay, Dale and Folker. Is a slip a year because there's not enough money in 2030. A lot of that has to do with the Fireweed Lane project needing so much money, $22 million out of 2030 funding. So that really eats into the available funds available for projects. So, so the idea is slip it out to beyond 30 for that project. And this one is where we've updated the to have the intersection improvements that it was requested. So that'll capture that.
I would just like to register that I'm really, I think that this one is sticky for me, in particular because of the development that is happening in that area and the increase in pedestrian traffic that we can expect to see. I think if there is any way for this to actually get traction before 2030, I would really, really like to see that happen. This is an area that is consistently dangerous for pedestrians and is consistently problematic in terms of traffic. So yeah, I appreciate that we are physically constrained, and also this is for me in particular and for this particular quarter a really high priority. So
This is a project that we have funding in place for this year for the design start, so it will be moving forward. So understand your comment there. Continue to advance this project. The other thing too, I think the cost of fireweeds come up a couple times, and there's still some unknowns on the scope of that project. So hoping to see that dollar amount be refined one way or the other here in the near term. Hopefully that kind of cleans up, or maybe provides some opportunity there in the 5 years.
In my experience, project costs don't go down, they always go up. So not to be a Debbie Downer, but I'll be surprised. I love it.
I'm seeing the optimism, I do. But yeah, knowing that we're gonna have some behavioral health facilities moving into this area, and it being adjacent to UFED, this is pretty high priority. So if there are other ways that this could be funded, I would love to explore those options. So.
I would add too, I think we've got the HSIP nomination that went this year for Dale Street.
Dale and Wright.
Dale and Wright.
Yep.
And so
Yeah.
with the pavement preservation project coming through there's probably some other opportunities there too, which sooner we can make some positive change.
Hoping so.
Yeah.
Hoping so.
What the plan is there, I'll think out loud again. But if we're trying to reduce the cost in the short term, on that, we could look at those roads separate. Right, I would advance the design on both, but we could fund one earlier if one was more problematic than the other. So like I said, thinking out loud, would
Yeah.
want to accelerate half of that. It might work into the funding plan. I don't know.
We could figure, I think it typically, I think cost savings when you bundle projects, so there is that to kind of,
But it's,
because I think we had them originally as separate projects and then we bundled together to save costs. So that's why they're lumped together as they are.
And they're so close together.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really, really close.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah, I think for initial design, combining them right now makes sense.
Yeah.
We can look at options as we get further along.
See, yeah, if there's additional funding, we'll make note of Dale and Folker as a priority as well and see what happens. I do want to note that Stephen mentioned in the chat that Third Avenue, East Street to Gamble, from the public transportation perspective, this may fall in line with moving transit center to the Chinook parking lot, meaning having it in 2027 or so thereafter could work timing wise as to when a new facility could be open in that area. So timing of the Third Avenue project and timing of the new transit center, I want to make sure we coordinate that and could work out well. So, and yes, Sean Baskey puts a note in the chat just to remind everybody that minimum timelines for federal projects with utilities and right of way take about 5 to 7 years. With us just receiving funding on Dale and Folker in the last few months, it's going to be a challenge to get it done by 2030. So, but it's recognized that it is a priority. We'll see what we can do. Okay, any other questions on the complete streets one? Okay, let's move to the active transportation table.
I was just gonna ask
Oh, yeah.
something about DOT on that Potter Drive. Now, I heard that there's some requests to move some funding sooner. I'm not sure if that project has advanced that much. I've been monitoring it for several years. Maybe that's something that could be shifted or delayed still. I don't know.
Potter Drive, it's not to advance the funding, it's to add more funding.
Add more funding.
I think it was an interest.
Yeah,
I just don't know if it's statuses. And it's really-
Construction. So,
Okay.
so
I
it's
mean,
early enough in the year.
I've not seen really anything. But beat anybody up, it's just haven't seen anything. Okay. All right, that's all I had.
just a general question, and full disclosure, this is the first time I have actually done a deep dive into the tips, so, this may be self-evident to everyone else. But when it comes to the motorized pavement replacement program, that the explanatory note says that this is a single funding source. Apart from projects listed in table 6, how else are projects selected to utilize these funds? Is there a process for that, or is this funding that we use to backfill shortfall in other places? I mean, how does that work?
Only the projects in table 6 are anticipated to be funded with that. I was going to get to this later, but so this project here is the pavement replacement. So these are for roadways, and these are for pathways, non-motorized here. Oh, hello all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're maybe coming back online. I don't know, but for now we're going to work off of my phone. So I apologize if things are a little hard to hear.
Okay.
We're going to do what we can, everybody. So a committee member asked, how are projects in table 6, the pavement program, selected? So basically staff reaches out to the municipality of Anchorage maintenance group, DOT maintenance group, and Parks and Rec and say, what are your guys' priorities? What are your top needs that you have? Because they know best. And so we put them into the table based on that. Now you may notice in the existing table, I apologize, people can't see it, but there are green and non-green projects. The non-green projects are the existing ones from the current tip that we were not able to get to. So staff just put them in there because they were the ones that were chosen last and we didn't do them. And then the green ones are new ones that were recommended. You may notice that Northway Drive is on that list there for pavement. That was actually a project that was slated as a protected bike lane project. And after looking at it, staff's making the recommendation to instead do a pavement replacement on there and restripe it instead of put protected bike lanes. Take away one of the travel lanes and make it a bike lane or a bike bus lane instead. Just do pavement work and painting instead to make it simple and easy, hopefully. That's our recommendation at least. And then on the non-motorized pavement replacement projects, those 4, we got based on interactions with Parks and Rec, who helped us with it. And then Emily also reached out to the DOT traffic folks to ask about the Benson Boulevard sections that are on there. And those are on their list at the top for needs, along with others. But because of how few we've gotten through in the last few years, staff did not recommend a whole lot be added to the list to keep it reasonable to try and get done over the next 4 years. Now, there is opportunity, of course, to add projects or take projects off of there, depending on the needs. We just like to make sure it's based on M&O's priorities, because that's typically what we do with these. So if you are going to recommend projects to be added or removed, we want to make sure we get that verified by DOT or Muni M&O as one of their priorities or not.
So those have been prioritized for that reason. And then Goose Lake Trail, it's our Mayor's Marathon route. And there's an effort to make something called the Goose Loop.
I'm aware of this.
So we're hoping to partner. We've been in communications with UAA and they're really excited. They just need money. So we're hoping this will be a good avenue to repair that area, which as a citizen or a community member, you wouldn't know there's management boundaries in there. Russian Jack. We'll take.
Sorry. Okay, I'm going to hang up. Hold on. Hopefully.
We're currently phasing Russian Jack with bond funds. And yeah, that's one that's definitely on our radar as well. We're on the fence about putting this in and because we have clear pathway with bond funds and it seems like business as usual, we kept it off.
I think I'm curious about the pavement replacement projects, just because, half of them, fully half of them are on the south side of town, which makes me curious about, how are we distributing funds equitably in terms of geography? And I would be interested to kind of understand what Muni M&O had in mind, in recommending some of these projects versus other pavement replacement projects elsewhere in town.
I think those were the needs at the time when we built the last tip.
Gotcha.
And we haven't worked on a lot of them since then. So it's been 4 years since we last looked at them and they haven't been worked on. So my understanding is these are kind of the top priorities for both. Well, most of these are DOT projects.
When there's more room.
So, I mean, there's opportunity to take things off of here if you as committee members don't want that, but just recognize that means there may not be a pavement project in that location for the foreseeable future. I think that's one of the challenges we have with these large scale expensive projects is it really limits our ability to keep up with the pavement needs in our community for both drivers and non-drivers. So that's another reason why staff tried to look for maybe cheaper options. So next go around, we can do a little more work on pavement. James.
To your point about the costs of the larger projects versus pavement preservation, we're also seeing a lot of pavement preservation projects that are expanding. There's a number of them that have been on these 2 tables that have now become standalone projects because of cost increases, scope increases. So, there's a conversation that we are having as well as how can we better define pavement replacement projects? There's a pavement replacement project that can shave and pave basically within a fairly short amount of time. Or there's a pavement replacement project that looks at right-of-way reallocations, adding the sidewalks to the mix. And that becomes a bit larger, more time-consuming, more funding consuming. And so where that balance, where the policy committee would like to strike that balance is, I think, a question that was worth discussing. Aaron and I have got a couple ideas on how that might play out, either through policy or doing project starts through the pavement replacement program, and instead of funding the construction through the pavement replacement program, or other mechanisms. So personally, I see there's an opportunity in this particular program to better define what we would like it to be, so that we can address both the short, fast pavement problems and the more larger, complex pavement replacement projects.
Yeah, Graham, we see you just a second. There's also a discussion we're having with Parks and Rec is, can we get them to start some of the design work and then just fund it with the construction only for pathway? Is that a way for us to help move things a little bit quicker? And it seems easy for us to at least start it on the active transportation ones and see how does this work? What are any pitfalls that we need to get through? And then maybe migrate over to other projects like regular pavement projects or even larger scale projects. So, okay, Graham.
Yeah, well, James stole some of my thunder. I think it would be great to articulate, maybe this is something the policy committee needs to do with the technical advisory committee's help, articulate some standards for what happens when we do pavement replacement, so that we don't come back and fiddle with the project last minute and delay it because actually we want to reduce the width or we want to add a non-motorized facility. To have some clear expectations might be helpful. So maybe that's an item we could talk about at a future meeting. Would very much appreciate the technical advisory committee's ideas about that. The other piece is, I would wonder how these would score today compared to our needs, and would be curious actually to see why these are prioritized. So to sort of have some data about why these projects as opposed to other projects, like what is the reason for these being included? Some of the criteria or scoring data would be helpful.
So we don't actually score and rank non-motorized projects. We base it solely off of pavement projects, sorry. Motorized and non-motorized pavement projects, we don't score and rank. We base it solely off of the needs that are identified by the Muni and DOT maintenance group. So what we can go ahead and do is reach out and have them look back at these. I know the non-motorized pavement replacement, we just had everybody looked at, so those are up to date. And then I can have them look back through the other ones on the roadway and see, are these still a priority? And see what they say and see if we can get some data from them about what is the current running depth, other things like that. What is the expected running depth in the next 4 years? Because oftentimes they may be fine now, but in 4 years, they could be safety issues. So we can go ahead and look into that and try and provide that to you next time we meet, I hope.
Yeah, I'm just thinking we have like what? I mean, like $1 billion worth of deferred road maintenance. And so, yeah, just a lot of needs out there. It would be good to understand why we're prioritizing these ones.
Yeah, I think I'd also be interested to know, like, what is the relative volume of traffic on some of these roadways? I mean, running depth obviously is a consideration, but also the number of impacted drivers seems to be a consideration as well. That, probably holding those two things in tension would be appropriate. So, yeah, I think concur with Graham, it'd be nice to have a review of these and potentially, some other suggestions that maybe impact more drivers with respect to safety and pavement.
That is part of the rutting analysis that we do, is the rate of rutting as we're doing inspections on pavement sites. Traffic volumes taken into account.
Great. Thank you guys for asking these questions. I've never really been asked them before, so I like that you guys are involved and want to know more. Linda.
On 36th Avenue,
Mhm.
I know that road is really falling apart. And it was nominated for HSIP project, hasn't it?
No, not yet.
Oh,
We didn't get it in time for this HSIP cycle, and the portion that we were gonna nominate early was from Spinard to C Street. So this is seed old Seward to the other section, yeah. We're gonna get there eventually. I just,
because I mean, I know it needs help. Either way, we can get there, but if it stays in this program, are we able to look at things like road diets as long as, I mean, that's kind of goes back to what James is bringing up. If we want to do more with it, with non-motorized facilities, and it ends up not just being a lip asphalt replacement, then what? Does it really belong in this list anymore? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think, things can come and go in this list pretty easily, just so you know.
Yeah.
This is not my goodness, we'll never be able to make a change between now and tomorrow. We don't want 36 in here because we're gonna do it as an HSIP project, or we're gonna do it as a larger scale project. I think, I'll take some of the blame for the changes to some of our pavement projects in the last couple of years, because I really pushed this idea of let's fix it while we're out there. But I realize that's been a challenge with the scope creep. So I think having some kind of parameters put on us by the policy committee and the technical advisory committee would be really helpful to know. So we can help relay that information to the DOT project managers and everything like that. So we'll work on getting some more data for you guys for the pavement projects and for the roadway pavement projects, and see what we've got.
Doesn't seem like our STIP funded pavement preservation projects are listed.
They are not.
So like, yeah.
They are in the NHS table, and they are not listed out because we did not receive a list from DOT. It is a line item, and that's all we have in there. This is just AMATS funded pavement projects.
Where is it?
Brad,
So if there are some on here that are likely that would be more than just replace as is, shave and pave, that's what you're gonna look into, and that's what we probably will have a discussion about later, and consider moving some of these into named projects that look at those. Is that what you were saying, or?
not really, no. I'm just planning on getting you guys the data on, are these still kind of the priority, or have other things moved up since we last looked at this? And then if there's a desire in like 36, you're like, we're gonna eventually come through with another project. Well, that's great, but what is that gonna be? 10, 15 years before we get out there?
It's really.
The pavement still has need. Like, that's the thing to identify with these roads. The needs exist now. So, and waiting for a longer scale project to come along, like, there are roads in our community that are falling apart. So, I think it's okay to have them on this list to do pavement work, as long as we keep it to the parameters of simple, quick pavement, and then do a later project as well.
Apologies, I mentioned it already, but what year did this list establish?
Oh, we last looked at this 2022, somewhere around there. And then we've updated it. I mean, we've updated it over the years to see if these are still the needs and stuff. So we routinely keep it updated. But yeah,
Like maybe some of those fix themselves.
I wish it worked that way. That would be amazing. The pavement group has come out and just randomly fixed them for everybody at no cost.
Wasn't paid for, but that was a really good gravel road.
Yeah, I could be it too. Okay, sounds like we need more info on the pavement. We'll see what we can get you guys.
I've got a question, and I don't think it belongs in this table, but I don't know where it belongs. Boniface pedestrian facilities, south of DeBar. I just don't really know.
Like putting new ones in or redoing the
Well, I
existing?
see people all the time trying to walk alongside the roadway.
So that's putting new ones in. That would be on
I
the
know.
non-motorized table.
So
This is for existing facilities that need to be,
I know. So
Redone.
that's where I was like, did we already pass the non-motorized table?
no, we skipped it and we're going back to the non-motorized.
We should check
Yeah,
that
basically,
area
the 4-lane somewhat divided between
north of.
Northern Lights and the bar. There's this gas station.
We should, it's
We should talk about wayfinding, so at least people.
I just ride my bike down the nice paved median at the DOT. Man, you will.
And maybe if that's,
At least, I mean, we should.
it's like I see people walking along
No one likes that.
Solo Trail this far away from high-speed traffic. I mean,
Yeah.
What's up?
We have a
with
few
them?
locations like that, so it's a real challenge.
It's there-
Okay, let's move into the non-motorized people and we can have discussion.
Great
I was gonna say,
segue.
So,
Here we are.
we'll go back to table
Okay.
3 and talk about the active transportation. So again, a lot of these are projects that are currently underway right now. So the top few of them are underway. And you notice we have the Minnesota Drive sidewalk repairs, rehabilitation. This was one of the projects that was pulled out for some additional work. And we have 2 new projects in here that I will, one you may not be surprised and the other one you may be a little surprised by. So we'll get into it. So the first one is the Tudor Road to Roosevelt connection. Now, what is this? I'm going to probably go ahead and have to pull open a map for you all.
I actually did.
So, yep.
But I didn't get it.
Up down, all the way down there.
So this is, yes, off of Tudor Road and Spinard Builders Supply. Okay.
Sounds like a job for Taylor's group to me.
Well, I think the roadway portion.
I heard that from here.
So how this came about is,
No, I was starting to say we need to finish some projects before we start a new one. That's all. Yeah.
so how this came about is there is currently a project in the tip illustrative to do a non-motorized pathway along the railroad right-of-way from Tudor Road, right here that you see at Spinard Builders Supply, along the railroad right-of-way up to Northern Lights and connect with the Fish Creek Trail.
That's going so.
It is.
However, let's not get into the Fish Creek Trail discussion.
Sir.
However, when staff was looking at this, we realized that there are some constraints in this location. The right-of-way is, the railroad right-of-way is pretty tight in this area. That's a little different than the Fish Creek Trail. When you look on the western side, you can see that there's some berms that exist right now that separate those housing along there from the railroad. Probably be a challenge getting the community to be okay with losing their noise protection that they have right now, or the feeling of safety that they have from that. Plus, there's a lot of utilities on that side. So it'd be hugely impactful to put a pathway in. Then if you go into the east side, you're also pretty constrained because there are areas of grades that you'd have to worry about in this location. So in the spirit of trying to get something done and utilize our existing system and not have a brand new facility that won't be maintained, no offense, that'll have challenge being, don't look at me like that, have challenge being maintained. The idea is there a way that we can get people? Is there a way that we can get people to utilize our existing system? So what we're looking at doing is redoing the existing sidewalk along, trying to use my mouse as I'm going through here. There is a sidewalk here along this portion of Tudor Road that could be redone. It's in pretty rough shape. We biked it today. Then as you get over to this area where the railroad tracks is, there's an opportunity to get people across the railroad tracks a little safer, a little easier for them. There could be an opportunity, instead of putting them right next to the roadway, right under this arm mast, instead going behind the arm mast and going across the railroad tracks. So it's like a little diversion here through there. And then as you get to the other side of the railroad tracks, there's nothing. And instead you have this social trail that has been developed. It is very well used. So it seems like there's a lot of people who use this location. It might be prime opportunity to put a pathway connection in here. And then you continue west and you get up here and you redo some of this pathway and you connect people with the existing Fish Creek Trail that's in here. And you have the option to go west, or you have the option to go north. That was just what is it called? Resurfaced?
We installed a bridge and a gravel path.
Okay, thank you. There's a nice bridge through there. Wonderful. And we biked along it up until you get to the Roosevelt Taft area. And the idea is then drop people off on the Roosevelt Taft, do some greenway work there, greenway corridor work there. That would not be our project, that'd be somebody else. Put wayfinding, that kind of stuff on there to be like, here's where you need to go. Get them up to Spinard, cross this signal of Spinard, get them onto McCrae up to the Fireweed or to the Fish Creek Trail.
That's a stupid question.
There are no stupid questions.
You haven't heard this one yet. Harding Road or Drive or whatever that is, basically just abuts the railroad right away now.
Here,
Why don't you just put a non-motorized facility there and call that your connection? It's all looks the same to us.
that was something that James mentioned. Why don't we just put it along Harding? And I said, that's gonna be complicated, because how do you get them from here over to Harding?
From where to Harding?
From the Tudor Road area
Oh,
over to Harding itself?
you don't think you can go that 1,000 feet along us without,
Not
oh, you got. the
necessarily
friction
you
over
that
there?
I'm worried about, it's the power lines and the residents who live in the area.
Okay, well, if you go and you go from Fish Creek and you have them take a hard right at Roosevelt and go over there.
There's a park there. There's a park parcel.
Yeah.
At Roseland.
I mean, and then you dump you right out the middle of Spinard Road where there's nothing but.
No, that's.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other problem, is how do we get people across Bernard Road from any other connection that we have? That's why we tried to focus on Taft, because there's a light there.
Well, that's something honestly that we've been kicking around, looking at the long-term development of a non-motorized trail down there. What do you do at Spinard Road when you get there? It's just, there's good solutions. They're just not inexpensive ones.
I mean, one of the big things to remember as well is that we have another phase of Spinard coming along that'll be relooking at the road. So there may be an opportunity to make improvements at this intersection, especially if McCray and Taft, Roosevelt are a primary connection for non-motorized users to get through the area. I know this is a very strange project, but I think it's kind of like a missing connection in this area that could be a big benefit to people, even if it seems small.
No, I think it's a good project.
And then it really allows people to get to the Tudor Road, Minnesota area, which we're looking at making improvements to Minnesota, Tudor Road, but,
Is the railroad project still an illustrative or are we removing it?
it's still in, the pathway, yeah, it's still
So
in.
I think we just get both. We just start with this one.
Well, right.
Yeah.
And honestly, maybe long-term, you just keep it there, sign these with Harding, and then you make that last connection at the bottom. And then you busted it up into sort of chunks that you can
Manageable.
fund.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. I don't think it's a bad idea.
Just have the railroad gates come down anytime a bike's coming down.
And kind of illustrating the thought process here is, bringing this down, brings the Fish Creek Trail a little bit closer to connecting to the Campbell Creek Trail.
Right.
The Potter Drive project is taking the Campbell Creek Trail from Dowling and bringing it up almost to International and Arctic. And so now we've got this space between Tudor and International and Arctic, that is the gap, and this helps close that gap.
Yeah.
And we currently have a pathway from Tudor to International, along International to Arctic. I mean, we have existing facilities, but this is a missing link in that connection, and just really helps to stitch together restaurants.
And that's in the MTPs.
The Northern Lights project is, yes.
But-
We would have to adjust it to have it encompass just this portion, but I think it's close enough that it wouldn't be a problem.
I think it's great. I think we're learning what's possible for our community and keeping the original in the illustrative and providing opportunities for community members in area of town where there's some major roads that are super uncomfortable is great. I think it's a win-win.
A question for DOT. I remember Anna Wilson pointing out this, at least the stretch along Tudor Road back when, can't remember in what context. Were we contemplating like a safety project or recall anything like that
This area?
in this area? Because she came and kind of talked to me, said, hey, what do you think about adding a sidewalk? And I'm like, yes, what's needed. From Tudor, just, I don't think it was all the way connecting to the trail system, but at least on that north portion of Tudor. I remember her mentioning it like 2 years ago, and I'm just trying to think of, had we already identified a project back when, or is it just something that we talked about? So I'm just trying to jog my brain.
Not ringing a bell.
All right.
Say others are.
Yeah, since I got something. Anyways, the fact that it's all pieced together and then even more so is a good thing.
A next project is the Fairview Greenway Hyder Street project. So I have a confession to make. This is not one of the highest scoring projects in the MTP at this point. It's not within the top 15 projects. And you may be like, Aaron, what are you doing here? How dare you bring a project forward to us that's not in the top 15? Well, we have a Sewer to Glen PEL project that is underway, and all different avenues point to a Fairview Greenway Street on Hyder is compatible with any versions of the alternatives that are selected as part of the Sewer to Glen PEL. The community's been asking for something in here in this way. We have the opportunity to do it. So staff decided to take a chance and put it in here and see what you all think. So the idea here is to convert Hyder into a pedestrian boulevard that encourages multimodal transportation and blends pedestrian and vehicle space using UNERF techniques. And it also includes intersection improvements. One of the big things is, how do you handle 15th and Hyder? How are you going to get people across that? What are you going to do at 5th and 6th? Where is the logical end for this project? One option could be do from 15th to 9th, because 9th is the primary east-west connection that's already been built up, and it's really good.
Aren't there already lights at 15th and 5th and 6th for Hyder?
No, it's in between signals, so there's not really room.
What's the one that goes through? That's the light.
Inger Gamble.
Yeah, but,
This is the road in between Inger and Gamble.
oh, it's that one.
Hyder doesn't go further. There's a building further north of Hyder on past 5th. There's a building there if you want to get to 4th. And then it stops at 15th. So, questions, comments about this one?
How could you pick it over projects that are in the top 15?
Why would I? Because it's part of the Sewer to Glen PEL that's underway right now. It's calling for a need. The community has asked for this for a really long time.
Is the $1 million the actual construction cost? And that's just.
That was design.
Yeah, that's, seems too good.
Probably be cheaper than that overall, but
No, I think on the heels of the fellow, it'd be great to see, this thing already in motion and moving forward to make some positive changes in the area.
yeah. Oh, Grim.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I guess I'll just chime in to say, appreciate this being in here. I think some progress in Fairview is really important to us. I know the mayor's talked about it quite a lot. And I don't know, I guess I don't have a specific vision that this is the right project. So I'd be sort of eager to hear from Fairview folks and others if this is the right project here. But I think doing something in the short term for Fairview feels like the right thing to do.
One thing I've been chewing on with this particular project is exactly what Aaron had mentioned. What are the logical termini here? And if you were to take this all the way to 5th Avenue, what do we expect people to do when they get to Hyder and 5th?
Also, I think it's at 15th. Right?
Well, yeah, and 15th as well. 15th at least has the advantage of there being a constructed non-motorized pathway at Gamble. So Hyder, Gamble, there's signalized intersection, there's a pathway. There is some logic to that. But once you get to 5th Avenue, which is an NHS route, with real no non-motorized infrastructure beyond a sidewalk, it is a valid question. Does that sound like a legitimate termini. And I kind of like the idea of Ninth Avenue, being that it's got fairly decent infrastructure, alongside the park strip. 10th is another thought, because that's a bikeway. That's not a bike boulevard. That's a constructed bike boulevard. So,
Well, you've got the,
and both of those things would make this a smaller project, which in the grand scheme of things is I think a net benefit these days.
you have the pedestrian bike facility on the north side of the Second, coming up out of from front of Brother Francis.
Third,
Third.
there's a building on between Fifth and.
Yes, it's built that look. Yeah, I'm just, how hard is it to come up with some sort of enhanced pedestrian way to get from Fifth and Sixth to that, tie those together?
Yeah, that would be Ingray, something on.
I mean, it really doesn't go anywhere.
I mean, that could be an opportunity. If you don't think the termini is right, we could adjust it to make sure that we go down to like Third Avenue and give us all the opportunity to look at what to do along that whole stretch instead of just stopping it at Fifth.
Well, there's a project for Third between.
Not in this location, not in,
It
further west.
stops farther west.
Or the alternative could be project to 9 and a follow-up project that goes 9th to 3rd to finish that off.
It could be, yes. You could section them. Yes, Melinda.
Oh, well, actually, I'm excited to see it. I mean, some of these projects that are aspirational and how do they rank and score against others? It's a challenge. So I know, I've been following the Reconnecting Fairview Corridor Plan, and that's just beginning, it's underway. And some of their vision is to have Hyder be a connection point. I don't know if it's connection necessarily to Hyder, but from Ship Creek to Campbell Creek. And so whether it's a full roadway connection or just at some point they're maybe gonna find a pathway to connect.
There was another project we were originally looking at, that's from 20th to 15th that included under crossings of Ingra and 15th. However, in the spirit of trying to get something quicker out the door, we decided maybe this one would be better to get started now, get the Greenway corridor done, and then figure out how to get to 20th or the trail that exists at 20th as a follow-on project.
Is this part of what the Reconnecting Fairview study addresses this Greenway
I don't know.
Neighbor Works program?
Yeah, I don't know if it specifically addresses this particular thing.
They are just getting underway. They've got a consultant on board and they met with various departments, including planning, sure DOT or not, but anyways, I'm excited to see this.
I think they're looking at the whole area
Yeah.
for possibilities, so
Yeah.
this, I don't think will impede them, but we'll have to make sure we reach out as part of the public. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of see what they think about this and if there's adjustments that need to be made. Right.
This could also be one that we could get started with bond funding. That's I would consider a pilot. We'd actually envision potentially doing an asphalt art pilot along Hyder that included pilot treatment, which could then inform what this new WNRF, which is something new to Anchorage, look like. So iron out some of those challenges before it's actually physically constructed. So, we wouldn't want to spend 10 million or however much might cost for something like this until we knew that it was gonna work. So that's just another idea. But those connection points probably are the ones that are the more expensive pieces that would not really be bond funded.
I would love to see this written in a more general way. Maybe it's because I commute to downtown and live on the other side of Fairview. I have some bias in a lot more non-motorized transit going east-west than north-south. And we already have several connections up into Fairview. And so I would love for this project to not only develop that north-south, but provide some latitude for the east-west to be prioritized if the design process reveals that would be the best outcome for the community. Does that make sense? So like maybe not tying the Woonarf to Hyder, but to something in the project scope. But yeah, I think like this is so good. I just worry that if we invest all this money into a north-south Woonarf for a brief section that goes from nowhere to nowhere, that it will be perceived as a failure. And I would love our first Woonarf to be a huge success. So I just want to give the project the ability to implement it in the best way that it can as the design proceeds.
So tell me what I'm referring to.
It's a living street.
It's like, so picture a road, picture a bunch of like bump outs and islands that are vegetated, and picture the traffic stays in the middle, but the non-motorized kind of goes up the sides and dances amongst the traffic and the islands.
So think of a winding 20-foot wide motorized.
It's like
Where
made to
it's-
slow down the motorized. It's like very Euro.
Very Euro, yeah. Amsterdamish without a canal.
And the tulips.
And
We could add
We
some-
could have the
Yeah.
tulips. Yeah, but,
Yeah.
I think to your comment, Taylor, I don't really know how to accommodate that because this specifically says it's on Hyder. And that is the north-south connection. And that is what the community has been commenting on as part of the Seward to Glen PEL. So, if you guys want it to be not on Hyder, we would need to know what street you want it on instead.
A Woonarf thing?
I mean, that's fine. I just think it's an opportunity. I just think the language is extremely restrictive, for what that area, which is a dead zone between, Ingra and Gamble, can do. And really it's about, you need to get people into that zone first for them to even want to go north-south. And I just think like, I think the language is restrictive and I want our first Woonarf to be successful. Full stop.
How would we adjust it without it changing the street that it's on? What about the language would you recommend we change?
You just dropped the technique reference.
Yeah, I mean, if that is the restrictive part. It sounds like it's more the location. It sounds like it's more of, it's kind of similar to what James and I mentioned, is that really getting people east-west is gonna probably be down 9th or 10th.
Well, but
And those are already in existence. And so there's maybe a portion between 9th, 10th, and 15th that needs to be enhanced on Hyder.
but I kind of prefer east-west, particularly from east of Seward Highway for non-motorized. Not well developed.
It's also a mid-block crossing, like it terminates in a mid-block crossing, and maybe I'm being too narrow-minded, but I just think like want to allow the project to explore the best connections instead of restricting it to Hyder Street, but yeah.
Brett?
My recollection of some of the genesis of this idea was instead of trying to have Ingrid and Gamble provide all, everything for everyone with the PEL, that some of the north-south non-motorized, like preferred locations for those would be to use Hyder Street. So kind of what that says to me as I think about that is, what is the result of the PEL going to be? And if Hyder does become from the PEL, hey, here's what we're going to do with all of the streets, and rather than having great non-motorized facilities on Gamble, we're going to route them over to Hyder. Does that then become something that would get constructed by DOT kind of as part of these projects versus something as a standalone? So will it be informed by that and the connection points to it and where it ties in on both ends? Is that the reason for maybe Hyder Street?
Yeah, I think to that point, I think the trail connections is a part of the PEL. I think there's also decisions to be made on Inker Gamble with the Pell. I think there's going to be a suite of projects that are going to be recommended as a result of that, that could complement what we have listed here. I also think that the Reconnecting Communities grant that NeighborWorks is working on here, continuing to progress, can provide some really good input to what we're doing with this project. And maybe we need to adjust scope later on. But I think this is probably a pretty good starting point for where we're at right now. And there's a lot of residential within that area that I think a northwest or north-south connection there, getting to a 9th, getting to a 10th, finding good other connection points to east-west would still have some good value there.
So if it's not viewed as like a through route, but connecting kind of those, and as I think about Alan Kemplin, like this is his kind of maybe of an idea too, just the vision of how it would like reinvigorate that whole area between Inker Gamble. So it's kind of placemaking along that stretch. But yeah, is that something that needs to be a priority over other needs? Though I guess as I think about 10th Avenue, the bike boulevard that is somewhat getting rebranded as Neighborhood Greenway, or it's kind of both. If you look at it, actually, the crossing of Inker Gamble is a key thing that I would say the Pell needs to look at how we get bikes and pedestrians across there. Just improved crossings. I mean, narrowing it 3 lanes would definitely help with some of the shorter crossings, but I guess, yeah, those are some of my ideas about it. So I guess my question would be, if it's kind of waiting on what the Pell says, because I think it probably needs to, especially those connection points, like what is this doing and what's it connecting to and how does it tie in? Then is it better to show this and have it be a little bit more generic? Is it better to take it off completely and wait until that actually comes into it? Because even if it's not on here, if we wanted to go after bond funds, or even if we wanted to use some of the traffic engineering program bond funds that we get to start into a pilot, we could probably start into some of this without needing to have tip funding.
Yeah, I mean, that is an opportunity. If you guys think it's maybe too early to put this project in there, we can look at something else on the list and say, let's do something else instead of this.
EPL is including, they're saying they were consistent with the 2050 MTP. I don't think that's a concern. It says the Greenway, as we're talking about.
That's true, it is an MTP.
Yep.
Kind of using.
The copy, this description is in the MTP right now.
Or is this envisioned as something that people that's utilized primarily by people who live in Fairview versus folks who are transiting Fairview?
I think this would be more of a local facility for the folks in the community. This wouldn't be a thoroughfare by any means. I don't think Blue North's in general, they're more the destination.
9th is kind of the northern border on Hyder anyway for residential. It's like commercial, but I don't think commercial that draws.
It turns on the car lot, so.
I think Alan's vision was that it was going to be connecting Ship Creek to Chester Creek, so it was visioned as like a regional sort of connection piece. Is that, yeah, you know,
I think that's still the trail connection piece to the Pell is still looking at those.
Yeah, that is the one thing is the Pell does have this greenway going further north than the MTP project. So something to keep in mind.
but yeah, as you go bike along Carluck Street, which is now one of our neighborhood greenways, it comes from Chester Creek Trail north through that part of Fairview on a 20-mile-an-hour, very comfortable road with a signalized crossing of 15th. And I mean, it doesn't go yet north to like past 5th and 6th. It kind of stops there at the park, but it provides, I think, a lot of what this idea kind of was envisioning. Very comfortable place to bike. So would this be a connection point, or would this be more of a local placemaking piece that attracts people because it's something new and cool and maybe reinvigorates the development along that area, doesn't become quite a key like link as much as destination.
It's gonna cause a huge, we're gonna need a lot of maintenance resources that we don't have, and so I'd love for it to be both. Like, that's really what I want, is for it to be both, and for us to put a ton of resources into a corner that's for the community. If we had a tax for that, let's go, you know, but we don't, and like, Parks and Rec is gonna be left maintaining this. I think you guys have been in the city and you see how we're able to keep up with things. And so I'm just trying to provide the project team with some tools to provide something that really is just less restrictive and is based in things that support existing infrastructure when possible, and like marry those things so we're not investing in something that is creating a ton of resources, may or may not be a success, and is constrained by like a description that we can change right now.
Yeah, I think I have some questions about a project that is so neighborhood specific versus something that actually benefits the community at large. And, you know, if this is, I think I would prefer to see limited active transportation resources go towards the, you know, the most users, right, that we could possibly accommodate. And I think that, you know, while a Fairview Greenway is a fantastic idea conceptually, I'm not sure that that's the best and highest use of active transportation dollars when we have other connectivity needs elsewhere in the city. So super cool concept, but you know, what's the biggest bang for our design buck, I guess, is my question. Like, how can we benefit the most users? And I'm not convinced that this meets that threshold.
Connection to Chester Creek is gonna be challenging. I think it's got, Gail says it's gonna require demo buildings and right away, but it's the connection doesn't mean anything. Connection's not jumping off the screen.
Like, would this project have a DSR? Yeah, so like, can the DSR explore Carluck as the Greenway instead of just being higher? Like, that's can I be more specific in a recorded meeting? Which is like, I want the project team to provide something for Fairview. I just think restricting it to this is doing everybody a disservice.
I think we're in a challenge because the Sewer to Glen PEL notes Hyder.
But it's not finished, right?
It's not.
So.
It's a few months now.
It's mostly done at this point.
Well, just because it's done doesn't necessarily mean, you know, to their points. Just because
Yeah.
it's congruent with that doesn't necessarily mean that that particular ornament on that Christmas tree is relevant to the rest of the meaning.
What's your
Graham, you have your hand up?
I think we should move on.
Okay. I think if you all have recommendations on something other than Fairview, please provide that of what you would have, or if you have description changes that you would like to see, please provide that. Just remember, you know, needs to be consistent with what we have in the MTP. And this is what we have in the MTP. So if there's a desire to change that, we need to get started on that ASAP.
So will the new MTP, I mean, now that we have neighborhood greenways and we know what those are looking like, might help inform this question of Hyder versus Carluck versus like connection points versus like what the PEL recommendations show, you know, kind of all of those pieces, those connections look like. And so anyway, for me, I think it makes sense to not have it in the tip.
Okay.
I just have one comment. I know we need to move on. But so when PM&E built 9th Avenue in that area, we observed the foot traffic on Hyder and it was constant. A lot of people using pedestrians. Some homeless, but it's just, it is a comfortable street to navigate.
Sounds good. Okay, moving on real quick. We don't have much time left, so we do have some new plans in our program. So of course we have the MTP update because we're never not updating it. We have the next safety plan update. We are just a few years out from it being at that 4-year period since it was last approved. So we got to get that started amazingly already. I feel. And then we have the non-motorized plan update. That is also one we need to get started. You know, by the time we get it started in 2030, it'll be almost 10 years old at that point. So I think it has a few years before then, but time is moving quickly. And then we also have a Muldoon Road corridor plan. This is one of the ones that we had talked about putting in the last tip, but it didn't make it because of funding needs. So we're putting it in here based on that. Any questions on these ones?
Is there a possibility to move the Muldoon corridor plan up prior to 2029?
Yeah, that road's a hot mess.
Yeah.
So part of the problem we have with that is we have 4 other corridor plan projects that need to be completed before Muldoon gets started. So right now it's Minnesota and INL, which is close to completion, but then we have Tudor, Northern Lights, Benson, A and C. And so we have pretty restrictive staff resources available to do those projects, unfortunately. So talking with everybody, 2029 was the soonest we could get it started comfortably. Yeah, I don't know if, James, you have anything to add?
No, that's pretty much where I'm standing. Minnesota's gonna be wrapping up, in this spring. We've got Tudor, and Northern Lights that, the RFP should be getting out on the street, fairly soon, probably definitely by the end of this year. Then that's a 1.5-year project for both of those. So 26 into 27. And in 26, we're gonna be getting the funding for the AC. So that'll be just the next one in the conveyor belt.
Do you think we could get the funding identified in 28 and instead of 29
I mean,
and get it started then?
if Tudor and Northern Lights are completed in calendar 27, and A Street is started in late 26, going into 28, we'll have 3 corridor plans that are active in 27.
Mhm.
It's a lot to manage on top of all the other work that we do. I think 29 is probably your most reasonable place to put it.
Just so I understand, you said, so the 3 plans, are already awesome.
They're already programmed. But Tudor and Northern Lights have been obligated, so those will be moving forward here post haste.
If it got moved earlier, what would get pushed back?
It's more of a matter of staffing than funding.
Yeah, you'd have to make a decision now to basically say AC doesn't move forward and Muldoon moves forward
Yeah, I think
instead.
that would be the trade-off. AC would be slowed down.
So right now we have INL, Minnesota.
Mhm.
And then upcoming is Tudor, ANC.
Tudor, Northern Lights.
Tudor and then Northern Lights Benson is one after that. And then ANC is expected to get obligated in 2026.
Can't see from where to where.
The whole thing. For where the couplet, I believe it's the couplet portion.
Yeah, I'm not
What do we
sure.
have?
I think we may have got that done at Tudor because of
We
the
might have.
Well, it starts just north of Tudor.
the access on C Street.
Look real quick. So it might be Tudor North.
Yeah.
That's where it begins, just for you.
And somewhere over top of Ship Creek.
Tudor Road to 3rd Avenue.
So is Muldoon more important than the AC?
We have a thing here from Stephen. Public Transportation has started a project for a new Muldoon Transit Center. It'd be finalized spring of 2027. And the end result will be the RFP for D&E of the off-street facility. This is in combination with the library Muldoon branch, so combined site that can also be the other community space as well. APD or what have you, much like how Mountain View Library has meeting public space with the library side. So sounds like an earlier start of the Muldoon corridor plan would be beneficial.
That corridor is constantly near the top of the list for non-motorized pedestrian stripes. It is the high-wide route for freight traffic through town. Everybody and their brother is trying to get through there because of other reasons. And it's nothing but a giant commercial strip malls on either side. It is a mess. And I've been a little frustrated that we've continued to move a lot of other projects and we keep saying, well, we need to study that one. We need to study that one. We need to study that one. Well, now you got to study if we're still pushing it out for 3 years.
Okay,
I mean, I will be crucified by my Midtown neighbors for saying this. But I mean, I think pragmatically, a Muldoon corridor plan ought to happen ahead of ANC and potentially even Northern Lines.
I would go back to the notes, but AC wasn't even one
No.
that we had programmed, and policy committee
added it in
added that one.
because of comments from the community.
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna get crucified.
So that would be that would be the question that you would be asked as the policy committee added this previously. Why is policy committee taking it out now?
I don't remember why they added it, but I think if you look at it purely from a data standpoint, I'll do the bigger problem.
And that's the questions that I was asking. I think I pushed Muldoon ahead of ANC. Was I in the policy committee when we made that decision?
I don't think so.
You got any speech? Congratulations.
Me either, Sean.
So I don't think the Muldoon prioritization is a question. I think that's.
Yeah. Okay, so
We do that.
If there's notes from, I
Yeah.
would appreciate understanding the rationale, but I mean, I think from a pragmatic standpoint, Muldoon isn't dire need.
So there are a couple of things we can do here. If there's a desire to have a Muldoon sooner, it can be moved in via amendment number 4 to the 23 through 26 tip. If you desire, and replace it with the AC project and then put AC to the 27 through 30 tip.
Money's programmed, you said? Funding's
For
programmed.
AC.
What happens if we?
You just spelled Muldoon.
Just.
Scrivener's error. We can fix that.
We would have to change it as part of amendment number 4. And so we just wouldn't obligate the funds until the change happened.
Yeah, which is fine because
Yeah.
it's just like we have to. It's
We would have to switch them out. So we could do that on our end and include that as part of amendment 4 and see what you.
But again, that's going to be a hard question from the community. You had said back in 2023, that this AC was a priority, like a plan. And now in 26, you're saying something.
And that could be part of the thing of priorities change as fatalities increase. So-
We have different information now than we had in 2020.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that might be part of that.
That's where planning lives.
Okay.
I think the other comment is that vote was to get it a study. This is just, now that we realize another one is needed, we're just prioritizing another one. It's not that the other vote was to say this needed to happen before Muldoon. It was just, so it doesn't have to be retracting the fact that it got identified. But I would say that policy committee is going to have to make that decision weighing the community needs and feedback.
Okay, so we can make note about switching those out and go through that process. Thank you. Okay, so those are the non-motorized or the plans. Now we have congestion mitigation. We only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to kind of quickly run through. Most of the projects on the CMAC are the same. We have our control measures at the top. These we are required to do, either as the state or AMATS. So AMATS takes on the responsibility. We have the arterial roadway dust control project. This is one of the ones we do to help with our dust mitigation, our PM10 in our community. Traffic control signalization. So this is money that we provide to the Muni Traffic Department. We have the non-motorized facility maintenance equipment for winter greenbelt trails. So Parks and Rec will be receiving a little bit of money in 2026 for some equipment purchasing. They've asked for some additional funding, if possible, for more equipment purchasing to help with maintenance of the winter greenbelt trails. So we did what we could to accommodate their needs and hope it will help. Bus stop and facility improvements. This is something that we've had in here for years and getting more. This is funding for transit along with capital vehicles. This is purchasing bus buys, basically. We've unfortunately had to remove some of the money from the capital vehicles to make room for some of the other projects that we have in here. So we do have a 0 year. I apologize for that for transit, but it's kind of unfortunately where we're at with it. Transit did ask for some money for demo operations expansion. So basically demoing a new route. So it'll be very exciting for that one. Some micro transit funding. And then the Muldoon Transit Hub mixed use development. So we're putting money in there, just so you know, that 25 million that we show in there is 5339B. It is not AMATS STBG money, that is transit money for a grant that we'll be going for. Oops, and I have an error I need to correct. And then there's the Downtown Transit Center as well, which is also 5339B, which is 25 million for a grant. We are told they need to put these projects in here in order to seek the grants from FTA. So we are putting them in here at the request of transit to support them.
Curious, why in CMAT?
We didn't really want to duplicate them also in the transit table. So before Graham goes, you did put in there, add a project for 5th and 6th, given the potential for transfer from the state to the Muni. I didn't put anything in here for 5th and 6th because I didn't know if or when that transfer would happen and what that would look like. So I think that's in progress. And if you guys have recommendations on what you would like to see, let me know.
I have a couple of questions on the traffic control signalization.
Mhm.
Does this include pedestrian signalization or just the overhead stuff?
Brad, Zach was here.
I mean, it's all operated, all the entire signal system is operated together. So these funds typically support some of our signal timing stuff. And they serve kind of both.
Okay, cool, thank you. And then the other thing I was curious about is if someone would share with me what micro transit means.
Stephen, are you able to help address that question?
Yes, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Microtransit is basically a geofence zone. So it's a set boundary of dimensions, whether that's south of a road on the left, right, top, and bottom of a map, and vehicles that are meant for ride sharing purposes are either designed to take people within that zone anywhere they want to go, just like an Uber or Lyft, or to connect them to a fixed route bus service. So it's intended for first last mile connections for people to get on a bus easier if they live in South Anchorage where there is not much bus service. They can get a microtransit ride and then connect to Route 85 on Old Seward Highway or the Diamond Transit Center, and then connect to the fixed route from there. Or they could just take that same service to a grocery store or wherever within that zone. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, any other questions on congestion mitigation, air quality? Okay, so we talked about the pavement replacement. We'll get more data. Just wanted to let you know again, the HSIP, NHS, or some of the transit table and table 10 have not been updated yet. The idea would be, hopefully when we get that updated data, depending on when we get it, maybe we can have another work session with the committee so we can walk through those tables. And I'll be honest with you, it'll be really up to DOT to answer the questions about those projects because I won't have as much information about how they were selected, why they were selected, et cetera. So we'll work on that on staff's end and try and get something set up. We may try and do it just during like the policy committee time on that Thursday. And so we may capture that and just set it now and hope we have everything available for then. So why we're kind of rushing a little bit quickly through all of this is October 1st, we need to go ahead and get the air quality conformity demonstration developed for this tip. And what that basically means is we need to know what projects are anticipated for the tip so we can actually determine the air quality impacts and do the interagency consultation process. That can take a month or more to get through. So the idea is do that in October, then have the interagency consultation in November, get everything ready to bring it back to you all in December to release for the public starting in January for a 45-day public comment period, January, half of February. I would also go to the assembly for a public hearing and then bring it back in March of next year for final approval by the policy committee and then send it forward for incorporation into the STIP.
So if changes are made, do non-conformity determination be needed?
Yes.
Is that
Yep,
incorporated?
that's why we like to try and get the changes before we do the interagency consultation and the conformity process. So we don't have to go back to them and say, here's what's changed. Do you guys have any problems with it? Typically, it's easy to do if it's like, oh, we're changing non-motorized projects because they're not impactful for air quality. And it's typically an email we can send to the group and makes it really quick. We don't have to necessarily do a whole lot for that. But if we're talking about roadway projects, that can be a little more involved. So that's why we're trying to get this work session to you all so you can break it apart and be like, we want different things here. Get that done before we start doing the kind of technical stuff later on.
That's pretty.
Yeah, there are some pretty easy things, but that's why we really need the DOT, HSIP and NHS projects, the NHS projects specifically, because they are subject to the conformity determination requirements. Any questions?
So you need our feedback this month, kind of separately?
Yeah, if you guys have recommendations for projects that you would like to change out of here that you're like, well, I don't think this one's good. Like maybe there's some concerns about the Fairview one. Well, what would you like to see in its place? And you can provide that to staff. And maybe as part of our next work session, we can talk through it and say, what do you guys think? Here's the change based on what you gave us, like the Muldoon one for the corridor plan AC, we'll adjust that. Some other things we talked about today, bring that back as well as any of the additional tables that we have done at that time for additional feedback before we get too far down into the determination. We're giving a month for the air quality conformity determination because there's new data that we have to use. And if there is a little bit of a lag time between final comments from you all and getting it into the thing, we have about a week's grace time. So if you could get me any comments within the next week or so, I would appreciate that. And we'll make sure to get the next work session set up for you all. Planned for Thursday, I think is it the 18th, 19th? 18th, thanks. Thursday, the 8th. Yes. So that's not,
So instead of the AMATS
Thursday.
policy.
Yep, instead of the AMATS policy committee, we'll have this work session, just like the TAC meeting was supposed to be today, and we have this instead. Most everybody seems to be available, so please mark your calendars, 1 to 3. We'll try and book this room again, because I think it works a little bit better than the mayor's conference room. We'll see what we have available at that point. Okay. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your input and bearing with it.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody online. Appreciate you showing up today.
Thank you.